Hello, this is my project on American infrastructure and the devastating degradation that has gone through over the past 50 years. This degradation has largely gone under the radar because it's not a hot topic issue, even though we use these installations every day. Things like roads, bridges, and water pipes are crumbling as we modernize, and these issues are not being addressed correctly. So the big ideas of this study was really to bring these problems to the light and show why we need to start taking action before the installations that we rely on fail us, and to show how we can begin to address these problems according to the experts. This slide begins to show some of the empirical data on American installations and the decrepit state that they're currently in. A great deal of the data from my study was taken from the American Society of Civil Engineers, who have gone and tested various forms of infrastructure firsthand and have given these structures grades and gathered the quantitative data in terms of economic numbers. So, for example, current estimates believe that $2 trillion will be the economic requirement for our infrastructure by 2025. The ASCE also gives report cards every 4 years testing our infrastructure, and they gave America's infrastructure a D+ grade during their 2017 report, showing that largely our infrastructure is insufficient. And another stat here on America's bridges, they were considered insufficient with 10 quarter, with 10 being deficient and the remaining 14% being completely obsolete. So the big solution to infrastructure devastation is smart renovation. And we'll see later that right now, cash-strapped local municipalities are forced to somewhat lazily and hastily fix installations. These renovations often don't last, and it's clear we need a new system. My meta-analysis suggests that merging with the private sector allows for systems such as competitive bidding to help introduce smarter installations. Investing in renovation of outdated infrastructure also gives us an opportunity to implement smarter technology that is better suited to the modern day. My purpose for this project was really just to simply inform the public of our current outdated and inefficient infrastructure industry and to offer solutions for the crisis. The most important questions that I came into the study with were concerned with how failing infrastructure affects us, and it became clear very quickly that poor infrastructure has burdened the economy, caused accidents, and fueled health crises such as the one in Flint, considering how those water pipes were so damaged. The theoretical framework here was really to look to the future and see that we could no longer continue on this path as we continued to modernize. This project is viewed from a futuristic and economical perspective on the infrastructure industry. So the first study I focused on our devastated water pipes, which is one of the most damaged forms of infrastructure. This study was invaluable in my meta-analysis because it perfectly contextualized the situation that our pipes are in right now, which is a really decrepit state, and provided accounts of how competition and merging with the private sector better the problem when implemented. So a little bit of on our water pipes right now, the corrosion and aging of our water pipes has been described as an epidemic, which has resulted in $50.7 billion detriment each year. These old pipes lead directly to lost drinking water, public health crises as viruses slip into the water, and wasted electricity. And right now, they're mitigated hastily under these strict timelines on towns that are short on cash, unable to make proper, durable renovations. So Cohen and his report showed how competitive bidding, when implemented correctly, helped create smarter and more durable water pipes that were cheaper and an efficient alternative to traditional water pipes. 45 cities that participated in competitive bidding reaped these benefits, of the more durable and cheap PVC pipe that was resistant to the corrosion that our current water pipes are under. The next research piece I delved into was by Cassetti's, who really showed how monopoly by the state has directly led to the problems we see today. He observes that the state taking complete control over a nation's infrastructure industry led to poor installations that often failed. Cassetti's found that opening up these installations to the private sector allowed for better technology that is more adaptable to the times. And as I say at the bottom here, private corporations are better able to adapt to changing technologies and markets. So the research design here, I tried to answer the research question of how the decaying infrastructure is affecting us as citizens, and how can these effects be mitigated in an economical way. The aim of the study was to collect data on our infrastructure and inform the crisis and advocate for change by providing solutions. So by analyzing a lot of the trends in the research of this topic, I hope to identify major areas of concern and what is the future impact if we continue down this road. So these next few slides were used to show data on several key pieces of degrading infrastructure. So the first system of infrastructure that I focused on is transit, which suffered the hardest in the 2017 report card with a D- grade. So here the backlog transit system requires a massive $90 billion to continue, and it's going to balloon all the way up to $135 billion by 2035. And this is just trips in billion of transit passenger trips. The next area I decided to focus on was America's roads, which are suffering due to bad condition. We always see construction going on due to poor quality roads and congestion. This congestion has actually cost taxpayers $160 billion, so it's clear that this is not economically viable to continue. And this graphic down below, we can see that total cost of congestion, this was from the 2014 report, in billions. This is a ever-growing concern. So these were my data collection procedures. This slide focuses on what I did to gather data for my meta-analysis. As said before, the data was collected entirely from secondary sources such as the ASCE. I studied the trends and founded conclusions on the subject. And the data was compiled from the last 2 decades when the weight of human advancement has really had a detrimental effect on our infrastructure. The meta-analysis was once again done to inform and offer solutions. This graphic is once again from the ASCE report card from 2017 and shows the grades for all of the different infrastructure structures. The best grade from the ASCE was from the rail sector. And what's interesting about the rail sector is that it has actually implemented the private sector in. And that has caused improvements of $27 billion in 1 year by the freight railroads. The data that was collected and the trends that were analyzed showed a clear decline in infrastructure quality, and degradation continues to increase. The graphic shows severe gap between what funding is currently present and what is going to be needed over the next 10 years as we continue down this path. These are some more stats. Road congestion has cost taxpayers $160 billion. So some of the boundaries I kept for my meta-analysis were to focus on the economic side of infrastructure degradation and focusing on how continued damage will hurt Americans. The last boundary was focused on one solution of merging the private sector to create competition. So some of the shortcomings of my meta-analysis stemmed from the data collection. The subject of crumbling infrastructure is not widely talked about, and studies on the subject are not immense. So for these challenges, I analyzed the current trends and found private sector integration was the best solution. So what are the implications of my study? Well, it shows that incorporating competition to the infrastructure industry offered a chance for smart technology to be incorporated and money to be saved. We saw that in the rail system, how improvements were made as the private sector was implemented, and also in Cohen's water report. We saw that the PVC pipes caused major improvements in the water system. So these results offer a way out of further crumbling of our infrastructure, and they've met my expectations and delivered a concrete way to begin to fix our infrastructure crisis. So, continued implications. Our current infrastructure situation shows clearly that our infrastructure is crumbling under the weight of our development, and these need to be addressed because we use these installations every day. So, in conclusion, the state of America's infrastructure is very poor, and we need to begin to save it because during my meta-analysis on infrastructure crisis, it allowed me to find the best data on our current infrastructure and its degradation, and also to extract expert information on the solutions that can start to fix the problems at hand. A major question that arose while compiling the data was what other forms of private sector integration allowed for better infrastructure. Competitive bidding was what I found to be the best, but there's also data on private contracts and other forms of private sector integration that were also effective. These are my works cited. Thank you.